Welcome back. Before the pandemic, tourism supported 1 in 11 jobs here in Utah and generated over $1 billion in state and local tax revenue annually. For the past year, conventions have been canceled and most international visitors have stayed home.
So what's the impact and how will the pandemic continue to shape the future of tourism right here in Utah? Todd Tanner explains in this Fox 13 360 report.
People want what Utah has.
But the pandemic put a pause on travel. In this Fox 13 360 report, we'll hear from the Utah Office of Tourism, the organization that books big conventions, Visit Salt Lake, those who run the ski slopes of northern Utah, and those who market the Red Rock country of southern Utah. What areas fared the best? Who suffered the biggest losses? And how will the pandemic shape the future of tourism in Utah?
International visitors are really important because they stay longer, they spend more money.
Vicki Varela heads the Utah Office of Tourism.
We expect that it's going to take us well into 2024, 2025. Before we get those international visitors back.
In 2019, before the pandemic, visitor spending in Utah topped $10 billion. Salt Lake County, with its convention centers, restaurants, and sports venues, generated more than $3.5 billion in sales. Down south, Washington County, home of Zion National Park, racked up $607 million. And Grand County, with Arches National Park, did more than $202 million in sales. Impressive when you consider the county only has about 10,000 residents.
All of the tourism industry has suffered.
Exact numbers for pandemic years are still coming in, but we'll try to forecast which areas fared the best.
Our occupancy in April went down to 11% occupancy.
Elaine Gisler, head of the Moab Office of Tourism, says spring of 2020 was a challenge.
We would only allow residents, essential workers, or fatigued travelers to come in to Grand County.
A year later,
are we back to pre-pandemic kind of numbers right now?
I would say yes.
Moab is among the destinations that seem to have scraped by or even stayed busy at times with regional visitors looking to vacation closer to home, which leads us to who suffered the biggest losses.
The greatest pain through the entire pandemic has been in these populated urban areas. Think about downtown Salt Lake.
The video you are looking at was shot in April of 2020 when downtown looked more like a ghost town. Most retailers and restaurants were closed. At the time, a 500-room hotel across from the Salt Palace Convention Center told Fox 13 they had a 1% occupancy rate and had furloughed over 100 employees.
The meetings and conventions that we have booked through Visit Salt Lake that subsequently canceled amounted to approximately $360 million of losses.
Mark White is with Visit Salt Lake.
Practically every meeting and convention that we had booked during 2020 ended up canceling.
Unlike Moab's bounce back, downtown tourism is on a slower but optimistic track as construction on a 700-room convention center hotel continues.
Kiwanis International will hold their convention here in June. It normally brings about 6,000 people. This year it will be smaller. We anticipate about 2,000 people.
Adjusted numbers may be typical of conventions to come.
They will certainly have a hybrid component, meaning that some people will attend in person, other people will choose to stay home and attend the convention virtually. So with that in mind, we built a 500 square foot media center that provides a plug and play solution for the convention producers to provide the virtual component of the convention to their virtual attendees. Now, we're not telling the virtual attendees to stay away. We want everyone to come, visit Salt Lake, spend their dollars, but inevitably there will be some who choose not to attend.
In what other ways will the pandemic shape the future of tourism in Utah?
I think there were a lot of ways that we adapted for this season that we realized made a lot of sense, not just for this season, but seasons beyond.
Snowbird, which spaced out lift lines as part of their plan to open in 2021, says they may keep them that way post-pandemic.
We had new food trailers at the resort this season that allowed guests to order food right at the base of the mountain without having to go into any buildings. It was quick grab and go food, and guests really seemed to like that.
There will be changes on public property too.
The legislature appropriated more than $100 million for trails and boat ramps and other essential outdoor recreation infrastructure through this last legislative session.
Do you think that to an extent that's a reaction to investing in something critical?
I have a view that you should never let a crisis go to waste. And the pandemic was a crisis that I think escalated, elevated all of our understanding.
Going forward,
We're not looking for large volume visitation. We're looking for the right visitation at the right place at the right time.
Todd Tanner, Fox 13 News, Utah.